welcome to today's session of Grit to Grit. Today, something special is I've invited my coach to, be here with me to discuss with you a very important topic of the burnout. And this was something that happened to me, I would say, 3 years ago. About 3 years ago, I was on the verge of like really breaking down, and I was talking to Sven, and I think I was like tearing up, and I was like, oh my God, this is just so hard, and I'm like overwhelmed. It's just so many things. And I think most of the time is I put so much pressure on myself rather than pressure from outside or what other people are saying. It's more I want to do these, and so I think that a lot of time I over sort of like think things and make things really worse. And so I was really at the verge. This was like 3 years ago, and Sven told me, okay, you need to talk to someone. And I was like, okay, didn't want to talk to anyone. And he actually found Katie for me. So he found a coach, Katie, and I think I remember he was like, oh, let me look around for somebody that you can talk to. And it was surprising to me that he did that. It was so nice, that he actually found someone for me to talk to. And 3 years later, we've been really good friends. We've been talking for almost every other week on, how do we improve, different perspective when things happen. And I know Katie always say this, when things happen to you, don't say that things happen to you, but things happen for you. And that's always, something that I remember when it's like when tough times are happening or whatever. It's like, shit, why is this happening to me? No, it's happening for you, right? And 3 years later, here you go. Like, she's actually made me become the leader that I am today. And I would like to share Katie with everybody and share this very important topic that got me started, which is the burnout topic. So, Katie, I think that the most important thing here is when we talk about the burnout, there are people who know they are at the verge of burnout because they're exhausted, right? The exhaustion is like, oh my God, I'm just overwhelmed because I'm so tired mentally, physically, everything is happening at the same time, and I'm out of control. I can't control the situation, and I feel like I'm drowning. And that's when people know it's a burnout. But there are some instances, there are signs that you are going to go into a full-blown burnout, but those are things that you don't realize yet because you're okay, you still do the things, there's still some stress here and there, but you don't really recognize those are the signs of an actual going to be a burnout. And so today's discussion is really how do we identify those, and how do you really ensure that there are steps taken, there are tools that we can do to ensure that it's helping you to manage those things. Yeah. So Katie, maybe you can share some of your what are the things that we can look out for to ensure that those are the signs of the burnout.
First of all, Fee, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. Second of all, hello to everyone. Really nice to meet you. I've met some of you before. I've worked with some of you for a really long time, so I feel really grateful and honoured to be here. And I'm very excited to talk about this topic because I want to start off by saying I've worked in the marketing and advertising industry for 2 decades. It's a tough industry. It is fast paced, it is stressful, and you are working for clients. It's a client servicing industry. So I really want to start off and recognize that we do work in an industry that's very, very, very fast paced, and that can be tough. It's extremely rewarding. It's extremely fun. It's extremely interesting. There's so many opportunities, and I know I'm talking to a real A team here of top high performers. I know that from working with Fee for the last 3 years. So I want to start off by saying that prevention, an ounce of prevention is worth a ton of cure. And I really want to focus on prevention here because I think we all know what really extreme burnout is. We have to manage our stress levels. We have to manage our cortisol levels. We have our adrenal glands at the back of our base of our spine. And the thing to remember about cortisol and adrenals is they get switched on really easily, but once they're on constantly, it's very, very difficult to switch them off. And that's what burnout is. And I think, you know, really extreme burnout can be, you know, complete resignation from the work that you're doing, complete exhaustion emotionally and physically. And that's different from just being tired from working a full-paced job and working really hard and using your brain and all of those things. So I think it is important to understand, to recognize the signs, but also be exceptionally mindful of what you can do to prevent burnout. And I think, you know, it's really important to Fee and all of your team and all of the management team that you are really, that you have the tools to be able to manage the workload.
We have our weekly managers meeting. One of the session, everybody was, I think a few people was a bit stressed because something had happened. And I was like, okay, everybody, before we go into this meeting, let's all breathe. Let's just take a deep breath, because it does help. It does help to sort of like, you know, sort of, because like you said, everything is happening really, you know, like it's fight or flight, and everybody's like, you know, going through meetings and in and out the whole day, just meetings and meetings and meetings, and you can get frustrated at things. You can, you know, feel like, oh my God, there's just so many things happening, and you're frustrated and you're angry and you're upset, or however you feel, and so just going one step before the tools of how do we ensure, how do we identify some of the things that we do to, you know, to become burnt out, right? There's all these different signs, right? That it's, okay, shit, that's happening to you right now. And so maybe by understanding those things, you can actually just stop and reflect and pause and, you know that actually you are on that path of, okay, burn out. What do you do? You know, so one of the things that I mentioned earlier is overthinking things, because when you overthink things, you are overwhelming yourself, or you are pressurizing yourself, and you're adding stress into your body without, you know, it hasn't happened yet, you know, or it could possibly not even happen. But because you're overthinking things, this adds on, and it's a chemical thing, right? Whenever you feel stressed, and it's a chemical thing that happens to your body, and so because of that, it will add on to you being overburdened. So that's one sign, I would say, and I think that there are a few other things. I would say even things like not sleeping well, right? Anxiety and all that. Maybe Katie, you can talk a little bit about those signs before we dive into the tools.
And everyone has, you know, unique personalities that might lean towards certain things like overthinking or being worrying by nature, etc. But I think we don't ever want to get to a place where we are truly burnt out, because this is where, you know, you're completely procrastinating. You're not doing, you know, there's changes in how you're feeling. So there's been a change in how you feel about the work that you're doing. We don't want to be at a point where you're no longer enjoying the work. We want to keep you really fit and healthy and mentally strong, so that we can avoid getting to burnout. Because real burnout, and I've personally experienced this, there's nothing more that you can give. It's all gone. It's the physical, the adrenals have been switched on so constantly. And this is what I mean. You can switch them on, but they come down naturally. But it's this point, there is no switching them back off. And that's something we really, really want to avoid. Trust me, if you've known anyone who's really had adrenal burnout, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. So, you know, any changes in how you feel about things, how you feel about your, you know, maybe you're not able to get the work done as quickly or efficiently as you could before. Maybe you're starting to feel more overwhelmed than you did before. I think it's checking into subtle changes. Maybe you've stopped prioritizing yourself and you started prioritizing work a little bit more than you did before. And it's these very subtle changes. And I think this is something that the more aware we are of where we are, and the more tools we put in to help ourselves now, we can really keep an eye on where I might need extra support. Or
one of the other thing that I think that you were talking about on how do we know, when you change the feelings that you have, like you like something and suddenly you don't. And I think one of the things that I realized when I talk to a lot of you guys, when you're sharing with me some of the struggles or the frustration is you use the word, what is the point? What is the point of all of this? So that's already, and I think when people are burnt out, they feel like there is no way out. It's even a fine line of being depressed in a way, right? Because it's like, in a way, everybody, wants to do the best that they can. We are all, when we are operating as the best, that we can, we want that. That's something that we are operate to do. Nobody, comes to work and say that, no, I'm just going to, not do the best that I can. It's not an automatic response, right? Everybody wants to come in to do the best thing for their job and for themselves, because they can feel fulfilled, they can feel proud of the work that they do. So that's the automatic. So when you then one day, or slowly think about it, and you'll be like, what is the point of all of this? And you're feeling in a way that you're not performing the best sense anymore, because you're just exhausted. The exhaustion can be in many forms. So there are the exhaustion of mental, because of dealing with so many different issues or people, and then there's the physical exhaustion of like overworking because you're not getting enough sleep. So there's many different types of exhaustion even, and I think that because of all of those things, you change your perspective on what you love, and now you don't anymore. That's when you are going through a burnout, because it's something that makes you happy, you're no longer finding joy in those things.
I completely agree with Fee. We don't want to be in a position where we're questioning everything that you've put in, potentially decades of your life, or you want to put in decades of your life into. So what can we do, and how can we take responsibility to support ourselves?
The main thing, I think one thing that you said very interestingly, which I think people don't really think about, is taking the space and the time for yourself to reflect. I think the in order for us to even realize we are going through this, we need to first have the space to reflect. And so it's important to make sure that throughout your day, you have space for yourself to sort of like reflect and say, what happened today? What just happened? What's going on? And not let it sort of like keep going and add on and build on until you are at the verge, right? So I think it's really important to find that space and reflect. And then that's when you can deal with situations immediately, rather than piling it up to make you feel unhappy, even worse, So I think, yes, it's one of the steps that Katie mentioned earlier on breathing. It's so simple, and yet it worked. It's so simple. Just breathe, and that will give you the space to just process what has happened, and not let it sort of like really build and add on. And then you feel like, oh my God, I just cannot deal with this anymore.
The first tool that I want to talk about is box breathing. Now, it's worth saying, I think we all know breathing's important, but actually it's worth reminding ourselves. And I came across something recently that really reminded me of how important this is. Now, if you think about the human body, we can last weeks, if not maybe even months, without eating. We can last days without drinking, only days. But we can only last minutes without breathing. And for me, that actually really put things in perspective of reminding me how important getting deep breathing into your day is. Now, some of you might like to meditate or do all these things, or you might have some mindful practices already. But this tool, it's something that I practice on a daily basis. It's something I've recently remembered to practice on a daily basis. So I really encourage you to consider adopting this into your daily routine. And it's just some deep breathing twice a day. I want to give you a specific way of breathing. And it's a tool. We're going to send out these cheat sheets, but it's an actual tool, because everyone says, do some breathing, but it's called box breathing. It's so simple, and we can all do it together right now. It's in a pattern of 5. You breathe in for 5, you hold for 5, you breathe out for 5, you take a gap. So it's like a little box, and you do it 5 times. It's so simple, but even I can feel more relaxed. It's called box breathing. It's a tool, putting it in that formula. It's very formulaic. So, if you want to do mindfulness and all these other things, or meditate, absolutely 100%. But to give, the minimum of things, just try doing this 2 times a day. Do it more. Do it all the time. That's fantastic. But if the minimum you can do is twice a day, your body will thank you in the long run. So that's my tool number 1. The next tool that I wanted to talk about, and I've actually done this myself today, which is turning anxiety into excitement. Now, this is nothing new, and I think there's lots of for hundreds of years we've had studies on the link between emotions and physiology, and so this really tunes into the physiology between anxiety, nervousness, increased heart rate, butterflies in your stomach. These were things that I was feeling, 10 minutes prior to jumping on a call with, 67 people. It's, it happens to the best of us. But what you do is you recognize and you understand that emotion, or that physiology, is so closely linked to excitement. The butterflies in your stomach, the heart racing, the cheeks flushing, whatever that might be for you, physiology, they're exactly the same. Now, the reason that we want to do this is because science and studies have shown that we perform better when we tell ourselves that we're excited. So, this is a tiny little, very underrated tool that if you practice it, and if you use the words in your head, say, no, it's not, I'm not nervous, I'm excited, you are going to perform better. And it could be in anything. You guys have got to sit up in front of clients, you've got to do presentations, you've got to go into meetings with senior people. These are fantastic ways to shift that physiology, and to also shift how you feel and perceive about it. Therefore, you are less likely to get burned out with the stress and anxiety that come with some of these challenges that you have in your job. So again, it's a really, I don't know, Fee, have you got any examples of this in?
I mean, I always, for me, before I go into stressful or those board meetings, and I'm like, oh shit, what's gonna happen? I get myself excited by doing jumping jacks, and I feel like when I get myself excited and I'm physical, because it is linked to your body, right? When you physically, and I know this is so simple. Anthony Robbins taught me this: how you sit in anything, and again, it's like when you're down and you're doing this versus you're doing this, and or you're relaxed, and it's just how you shift your body, it just changes how you feel. It's so simple. These are just simple things. How do you get excited? Because that would change anxiety into that, because you're channeling that energy into that.
Next thing I want to talk about is sleep. So I don't think I need to tell anyone how important sleep is. I use it a lot, and I certainly have used it a lot in the past, because this was something that was really difficult for me. I'd get into bed and my brain would just run through all of the things that I needed to do. It was the wrong time to be thinking about this stuff as you're falling asleep. So this was actually designed for the military, and it's really, really profound, and it's really, it's more powerful than the other breathing technique. That's an easy one to do on your day-to-day, but it's another breathing technique, and it goes through into some muscle relaxants. So it's called 5-7-8. Well, so let's do it together. You're going to see a difference between the two breathing techniques. So you breathe in for 5, you hold for 7, and you breathe out for 8. And you're going to feel a real relax in your body when you breathe out for 8. This is a really, really powerful. So if you do this 4 or 5 times, your body is going to instantly switch off. And then what the military do is they go around all them with the deep breathing that's now in place. You go around and you relax your jaw, relax your eyes, relax your eyebrows, relax your shoulders, and you work through all the individual, joints of your body. And so if you still aren't in a state of falling asleep, then they encourage you to think of a beautiful scene. Maybe you're at the beach and you can hear the waves and you're on a hammock. So there's some visualization in here. If you don't fall asleep after doing that, have a chat with Fee. And but this is, again, it's a really great tool just to have there if you're struggling with that, that voice in your head and you need to get a good night's sleep. The military use this. I've used it for many years, and it really is a fantastic tool. Again, getting a great night's sleep is going to help so much to give you the energy to feel great about your job, to perform really well, to get through the challenges that are inevitably going to face you. So again, breathing and sleep and all of those things, it's so vital to the prevention. The next technique, unfortunately, this isn't mine, but it's a really powerful one for taking action. We can spend so much time during the day deliberating on really small stuff. Maybe we don't even do the small things, the small actions, send that email, make that sales phone call, and that could really impact the success of your career even, or the trajectory of your life. Small decisions can have huge consequences. And this is a fantastic technique popularized by a wonderful public speaker called and coach, in fact, called Mel Robbins. If you haven't heard of her, check her out. We can give you the link to the book or the audio book so you can read this technique in full, but it's really powerful. It's called the 5-second rule. It's really simple. It's been around for decades. I think everyone understands the concept. It's counting backwards and just do it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Send the email, press send, get up and do that task, get up and go and speak to Fee about something that you've been putting off for a long time. Why this is so powerful and why I love this is because I have a tendency to talk myself out of things, and we all do this. We have an instinct or an intuition to do something, or we have an instinct to do something that's a bit scary, but our brain within 5 seconds will talk us out of it. So we don't do it. We don't press send, we delete it. We don't make that decision, we put it off till later. We don't wash the dishes, we let them pile up in the sink. And all of these things add on to micro stresses that, with some really great tools, if we implement them, of course, you've got to use them, you can move through life a lot quicker and feel a lot better about yourself and eliminate unnecessary decision fatigue.
I think just to add on to that point, some of these things are very subconscious. It's not a physical, like things like chores and all that. It's just at the back of your mind, and it adds on, and you don't necessarily think of it as a stress. It's just things that you have to do, but you haven't done, things that is going to happen, and and because of that, it adds up to you feeling overwhelmed and feeling there's just too many things for me to deal with because it's subconscious, all of these things. And by trying to do all of those things, and you're crossing off your checklist in a way, so without having to add on to the things that make you feel overwhelmed. And one of the things that I feel really help is whenever you feel that you're in a situation and you're really overwhelmed, or you're just really frustrated about something, one of the things that I always try to do is just to go away. Just to go away, whether you are just going out for a walk, and or you're just driving, or just out to just have space for yourself to decompress. So then, and then you do all your breathing techniques and all those things, so you just feel like it goes out of your body, instead of that's toxic, this toxic, right, the feelings and emotions and everything that builds into you, and then it just build up, and you don't recognize it because it's subtle. Some of these things are very subtle. You feel frustrated, but then you're like, you just you sweep it under the rug, and you don't feel, but it adds on, right? And I think one of the other things that really is helpful is talking to someone. And it could, it doesn't have to be somebody that it could just be some random people outside. It could just be that whole, just letting things out, like, just, you need to vent, you need to talk to someone. It could be something else, it doesn't have to be about the situation. It's just letting things out, right? So that it doesn't, basically, you don't want your body to be holding negative thoughts, negative thinkings, negative thing that become toxic, and then that become the issue, right? Which is what it's build up, you become overburdened, and that's what you don't want. So the tools that Katie has shared earlier are tools that can release out, from breathing techniques to sleeping to rest, right? So sleeping is resting, basically, right? It is really to rest your body so that you can recover from the day that you have, right? Because I think that's always key. And then, of course, the different techniques that Katie shared on the releasing out, and how do you do all of those things? One of it, by talking to someone, by finding space for yourself, whatever that is, that space that you can reflect and decompress. Everybody will have different ways, to do this, and I just hope that everybody can find their way, whatever that is. And I'm here to help. We are here to help in terms of giving you the tools, but it will be different for different people. And I want to just tell you that you can find that space, and find that what is the right formula for you guys individually, because everybody is different, right? And then once you get through that, then it's like, wow, you got it. Then you can deal with different, whatever challenges that come your way.